I love to learn. I'm still learning now. I'm always doing a course on some sort or reading a book about something. I think people assume that with dragon magic, you're just going to have a meditation and there'll be a dragon. Or you turn around and there's a dragon sitting on your house or in your garden. Or for me, it's not like that. It's more the energy. Working a ritual is brilliant because they can bring all that power to the ritual, to the energy of it for your spell working. If you want passion, energy, power, speed, drive, courage, self-confidence, they all come under the fire dragon. The pathway is yours to make and make it your own. There are no rights or wrongs. There's mindful guidelines, but make it your own.
Hello and welcome to the Pagan Portal Podcast. Today, I am your host, Matty Greenfield, and my guest today, you know her very well. She is the best-selling author, witch, blogger, high priestess, and normally the host of this very podcast, Rachel Patterson. Welcome to the show, Rachel.
The tables are turned. I feel a cackle.
To start us off, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, I am a witch. I have been walking the pagan witchcraft pathway for over 30 years now, which makes me feel incredibly old and really not wise. But yeah, there you go. I run the online Kitchen Witch online school of witchcraft along with Ness and Heather. What else do we do? I do the podcast, blog and YouTube channel, and we teach witchcraft. We run workshops. I give talks, and I write books. The 30th one actually came out this week, which is totally mad.
Yeah, crazy.
That's, chaos, really. That my life is chaos, but in a good way.
How do you find any time to sleep?
Well, that's a low priority in the scale of things.
I am now going to torture you with the question you have tortured many of our guests with. Give us some insight onto your spiritual pathway.
It's retribution, isn't it? I think you cackled then. See, it's catching.
Yeah, it is.
I think I was brought up in a regular household, no religion really, but my dad has always been very much connected with the land, organic gardening before it was fashionable, loves wildlife and the birds, and so I guess we were kind of brought up with that. He also loves history and the landscape, so we would go and sit on Stonehenge when you could just park your car on the verge and go and have a picnic on the stones, which seems like sacrilege really, but that's what you did. So I guess it was kind of always there, that idea of connecting with nature, with the paganism side of it. I was also born on Halloween, so probably no escape there. And 30 odd years ago, I just found a book in a charity shop about the history of witchcraft, and I thought, that sounds interesting, because I'd always I've got ornaments of dragons and witches and fairies from my childhood. So I've always had that connection, that interest in what's probably termed as fantasy. So it'd always been there, I think. And I found this book and I read it and I thought, that's it. That makes so much sense. So I started delving and learning, which was difficult. I know this is a bit difficult to understand, but it was pre-internet of any kind.
I don't know how you survived.
It seems bizarre nowadays that there was no internet.
No podcasts.
No, there was nothing. No online bookstores, nothing. So I got a few bits from the library. I found the odd bit in a bookshop. So I learned from books originally. But then the internet arrived and the whole world really opened up. So I've studied. I like to learn. I've done all of the Wiccan degrees. I've done courses on all sorts of stuff. Shamanic practices, Viking practices, all sorts. I love to learn. I'm still learning now. I'm always doing a course on some sort or reading a book about something. That's kind of where I am, eclectic, miscellaneous.
Yeah, but one of the things I've learned about paganism in general is very much, I'm going to take this, I'm going to take this, I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to sort of mold it into my own sort of personal pathway. Like you get people in England taking stuff from the Norse, taking stuff from the Greeks, And I'm sure in Norway you'll get them taking stuff from the Celts and so on.
I think that's one of the best things about it, is that you can literally pick and mix and make your own pathway. And that means it can work for everyone, which is brilliant, because there are structures. There are some particularly Wiccan practices where there are strict guidelines. I didn't like that. I don't like being told what to do. So I guess I am a kitchen witch, because I love working with magic in the kitchen and food and working magic with whatever I can find, whatever else to hand kind of thing. So kitchen hedge witch is probably where I'm at, really.
Yeah, well, food in general is such a great way of pulling people together as well and creating a community around such a thing, because you can have let's come over for dinner and we'll discuss all of these things and we'll do it over food and it's just a great way to be spiritual and communal in general, I think.
I think you've hit on it there. Community is quite important, particularly for my Coven Kitchen Witch. Community is at the heart of it. But then every single meeting I have with the girls revolves around a cafe or cake of some kind.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's that you can find it even in people that aren't spiritual. They'll just go to the garden centre to have food, which is such a... When I first found out that you got food at garden centres, my mind was blown that most people actually go for the food and not the garden.
Yeah, absolutely. Garden centre is usually empty. Cafe, packed. Yeah.
We are going to get onto the dragons shortly, but first I would like to speak about some deities because, well, we talk about deities a lot on this show. Yeah, I'd just sort of like to know which deities you feel a connection with and little bits about them, why you like them, that sort of side of it. I know the Kaliach is a big one in your life that you've mentioned many times.
Very nicely pronounced.
Yes, Yes,
you were practicing.
Oh yes, I especially the Celtic ones, especially the Welsh and the Scottish and the Irish. I very much do the best I can to pronounce them correctly.
It's a challenge, that's for sure. I've always been open right from the start to whoever came my way, and I have been lucky enough to have been visited, for want of a better word, by all sorts of deities. I kind of chose the Celtic, for want of a better word, pantheon to start off with, because that made sense, because I live in Britain. And I did work with a few, and then the Kaliach came. That was actually reading a fiction book when she arrived and her name appeared, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. Then she kept appearing in various things I was reading or watching, and I thought, she's shouting at me. And that was probably 20 years ago now. So she's walked with me ever since. And then I visited Bath in Somerset something like 8 to 9 years ago. And Sulis made herself known to me. And from that, it's kind of expanded my interest in English deities. Because the Celtic pantheon is one that most people know the gods and goddesses from. They know the name, they work with it. But it really just covers Welsh, Irish, and a couple of Scottish. Doesn't cover generally the English deities because most of them have been forgotten. We didn't write anything down. We don't have the Mabinogion like the Welsh do. We don't have legends and folk tales and songs and stories like the Irish do. And I guess where the Romans came as well, that kind of wiped a bit of it out as well. So I'm on a bit of a mission.
To rediscover the English ones.
I want to say I'm on a mission from God, but that's that's Blues Brothers. I'm on a bit of a mission to kind of unearth all these English deities, and sometimes there's only like one tiny inscription in one place. We had this thing where deities were associated with a river or a lake or a mountain, so they were very specific to locations. But that's my mission, my current mission, to unearth them all.
If I were to guess,
they're waiting.
Yeah, they're there. If I were to guess, I would guess that the Romans came over and pushed a lot of them into hiding, like their gods came with them, and almost pushed a lot of them into hiding, as the British people were most likely pushed to the fringes of the country itself with the invasion all those thousands of years ago.
Absolutely. And some of that Sulis was lucky, I think, because Sulis had been worshipped for so long, back to Mesolithic times, they realised she was quite powerful. So they just tagged her. It's a bit tag team with one of their goddesses, Minerva. But they kept Sulis's name, which is really interesting and quite unusual. Usually, like you say, they just brought their gods with them.
Yeah, that's really interesting as well, I find, looking through history, is that you can see, I think the word is synchronicities between, like, everyone has a storm god, everyone has a god of war, and a lot of them share a lot of the same characteristics as well.
Absolutely. Although England doesn't. We don't have that set up. We don't have a storm god. We don't have a Thor or we don't. It just linked to a river or a lake. There is
River goddess.
Sabrina is a river goddess. But we don't have that structure of pantheon that most of them do. So we like to,
that's potentially why then that they didn't synchronize with the other deities, and instead of sort of having a similar name but the characteristics intermingling, they just sort of went, okay, I'm going to hide out here and let you rediscover me in 2,000 years' time.
Yeah, I've gone into hibernation. When you're ready, give me a ring.
Yeah, we've been talking for 11 minutes and we haven't gotten on to dragons. Well, that is what this is all about. They won't let us not discuss them any longer. So let's dive into the dragons. Could you tell us about your first encounter with them as like a way to kick us off?
I think they've always been there. I think dragon energy has always been with me. But it was one of those things that I do have ornaments and books from my childhood that are on dragons because I've always had that fascination. So I think it's always been there. There was a book when I was at school, and I found it in the loft the other day, and it was published in 1968, which is the year I was born. So that shows you how old the book is. I must have been, 6 or 7 when I read it, and it was called Green Smoke, and it was about a little green dragon in Cornwall. And that story has stuck with me. And it made such an impression on me, I think, that followed through. And it was only once I found witchcraft that I realised what that energy was. I'm very driven. I read into that I'm actually very controlling and bossy. I'm going to blame all that on the dragon energy because I think it's always been there pushing me forward. I am the organiser. I am the doer. I am the one that kind of, let's do it. And I'm fairly sure that that's the dragon energy behind it all that's always been with me. So I'm not bossy, it's the dragon. I'm going to stick with that one.
Would you say there wasn't necessarily like a first encounter, it's just you sort of discovered that all along there had been this draconic, powerful energy that had been pushing you? So there may be others out there as well, those that don't sort of realise that they're walking step in step with a dragon, potentially.
I think people assume that with dragon magic, you're just going to, have a meditation and there'll be a dragon. Or you turn around and there's a dragon sitting on your house or in your garden. Or for me, it's not like that. It's more the energy of it. I mean, I visualise what they look like. I have one particular one and I can feel him now. And you can feel that energy, but I don't really see him. He doesn't wander across the garden or anything. No. It's an energy form.
Right, let's dive a little bit more into mythology and fiction. I've sectioned up this podcast to help me out. And so we'll start at the beginning. So dragons do actually appear across various forms across all of human history, and every culture, this is a bit I find really interesting, every single culture has dragons within them, and a lot of those cultures have been completely separated by landmass, by time, so that they couldn't necessarily cross over naturally, but they have still managed to become a thing across every culture. My question then would be, what do you believe dragon origins to be, and what makes them so powerful? And then to tack on a third question, do you think there is a particular reason as to why they've popped up everywhere, independent of individual culture?
It's a bit mad, isn't it? I mean, I knew various forms of dragon, various cultures had dragons. It wasn't until I started researching that I realised just how many cultures have them, and it's nearly all of them. Nearly every culture has a dragon story of some sort, or more of them.
Yeah, and
So
a lot of them are very similar in their design as well.
Oh, yeah.
Like some of them are a bit longer, but they all have the same design almost, but they've never had a chance to actually chat about it, as it were.
I know, it's mad, isn't it? And I did ponder for a while on it. There are different types which we can come on to, but the dragon energy is across the world. It is across the globe. There are different types. There are different. Some are good luck. Some are bad luck. Some are portrayed as evil. I think the origins, and it's a bit scientific here. I apologize to all of the spiritual, mythological side of it, but there is, I think, a scientific reason for it, and that's dinosaur bones. They inhabited the planet, and of course their bones would eventually been buried when they died out, meteor and all that scientific stuff. And of course then you get an emerging culture or a young culture that doesn't understand what these things are, and they come across the skull of a T-Rex. That's got to be fairly scary on the one hand, but fairly confusing, mystifying on the other hand. So I think that's probably, they would have made up stories about this monster creature that had this great big teeth and a huge skull. And I think that probably follows right across the globe. There are lots of ancient texts going way, way back where famous philosophers have written about walking through landscapes that have the skeletons of dragons. And they are dinosaur bones. So I think that's where the whole global story comes from, because everywhere's got those stories. Everywhere would find those bones and need a way to explain what they were. I mean, then you go on to the Victorians, who loved dinosaurs and history, and they would actually, there were some unscrupulous ones that would put together whale bones and various different bones and spines and bits of this dinosaur, bits of that dinosaur, and actually stick them all together and make it into a sea monster and sell tickets for people to come and have a look at the sea monster. God love the Victorians. They did have fantastic imagination. But I think the dinosaurs is the basis for it. And then each culture kind of explained it in a way that fit their narrative, that fit their stories and their way of life, I guess.
Yeah, and that's what I find really interesting, is that where in the West, where we reside, a lot of dragons are represented more towards the evil side, the chaotic side, and they are a creature to be slain. Whereas when you look more into, like, say, Chinese and Japanese cultures, some are still that sort of to be slain creature, but they have a lot more positive light shed on them as well. Mukalinda, for example, protects the Buddha. Ryujin is generally quiet and amenable, and the Chinese long dragon actually fights with the emperor against the god of war. So why do you think that here in the West we generally see them more as something to be slain, something to battle against in more traditional mythology and media?
There is an easy answer to that, and I hope it doesn't offend anyone, but Christianity is unfortunately a lot to answer for it. A lot of the stories portrayed the dragon as the evil, the old ways, the paganism, the people that didn't believe, and then the dragon slayer would be Christianity, which is why the dragon slayer, I say, always wins, not always. Sometimes in some of the stories, the dragon would actually die, but with its dying breath, it would kill the dragon slayer as well. So I don't know what the meaning to that one is, but I do like, it's a bit of karma going on there. But it does seem that a lot of these stories, like George and the Dragon, there is that religion element to it.
Yeah, but so there's also Saint Michael's dragon as well, isn't there? Saint Michael, and that's more of a dragon. I know all this because I've read your wonderful book and made a few videos on it. is the dragon in Saint Michael he's almost a depiction of the devil itself, isn't he, in some ways?
What the dragon also appears in the Bible as well as a sea monster. It's seen as evil, so that the dragon slayer comes along and saves the day. Beliefs. It's all about beliefs, and that's probably why with the more Asian, Eastern type of dragons, a lot of those are seen as good luck and good fortune because their beliefs are different, their religions are different. I think it's China where the emperors are all said to be to have come from dragons. They can trace their lineage back to dragons, which is quite cool. I wish I could do that. That would be very cool.
Yeah, transform into one as well. That'd be nice.
Just like there you go.
Yeah. So do you think that in where we are, that's something we should be looking at changing the narrative almost on our perception of what dragons are and could be?
That would be fantastic to do. I always fight the corner of the dragon. Every St. George's Day, I'm cheering on the dragon.
Yeah, I guess we could focus on highlighting more elements of protection, elements of independence potentially with as sort of, you were saying how the dragon with you is makes you a bit bossy, makes you a bit, I want to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to organize this. And instead of looking at those as like, oh, the bossy dragon over there telling me what to do, to maybe view it as, oh, the go-getter over there carving their own pathway in the world sort of thing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be where I am without the dragon energy, I don't think. No. So it's an interesting way of looking at things. And I think a lot of it is, when you look at the stories, some of them are so ridiculous. And most of them follow the same sort of theme. So it'll be the dragon is eating all the sheep. So the people of the village get really cross because the dragon's eating all the sheep. So their answer is to offer up maidens from the village instead. How does that make sense? We're going to lose some sheep to keep the dragon happy, or we lose some maidens, some human beings. That doesn't make sense to me, really. It's madness. Just feed the dragon what he wants and he'll be happy. Then you can keep everyone alive. It's mad. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever to me.
So yeah, as well as mythology though, dragons also are everywhere in fiction. In the book Dragon Magic, that you can find all of these wonderful things on in far more depth than we can get through in an hour. But you mentioned Smaug as one of the first dragons that you encountered in fiction. What was it about Smaug that you found so interesting or intriguing, do you think?
I've always loved to read, and my dad to thank for that as well. Every Saturday we would go to the library, and The Hobbit was one of the first books I remember really reading, and I was quite young, but I loved it, and I still love it now, and I've read it so many times. So I think the idea of Smaug in there, because it was one of the first stories that really grabbed my attention, along with Alice in Wonderland and the Jabberwocky, that one too. But I think Smaug is such a powerful creature, and that book is so brilliantly written. I think it was the first one that captured my attention and stuck with me, really.
Yeah, so, he's such a classic dragon as well. He's
with his hoard and
guarding the treasure. It's his mountain. If you enter, then and also
he's the archetype, isn't he? He's the archetype dragon that you think of.
Yes. And what's also interesting about The Hobbit in general, tying back to what we spoke about with English mythology disappearing, Tolkien was actually a big advocate of creating an English mythology as well, and the fact that you put that classic dragon in there. The Hobbit's almost a mythological tale for England in some ways, I feel.
Oh, I would love to be a Hobbit. I mean, how many breakfasts do they have for a start? I'm all up for 2 or 3 breakfasts, and then afternoon levensies and afternoon tea, and they've got it nailed as far as I'm concerned.
Let's move on to now something more practical. Let's move on to working with dragons and dragon energy. First off, what are the benefits of working with a dragon, and what are the risks? I'm sure there are a lot of risks.
Can make you very bossy. No, it is. It's an ancient energy, and I think people need to remember that it is a kind of primordial energy. They are not light and fluffy. The dragon is not going to flutter by and, cleanse your crystals. Well, he might, but it probably incinerate them. I think it's important to remember that they are a really powerful, strong energy. They are also ancient and fairly intolerant. They are old, but they are wise, and they don't mess about, because they haven't got the time or the patience for that. So you have to be fairly specific. I think they're also, their energy, if you ask them to do something, they will just do it. Straight line, bam, without thinking about consequences or anything else that gets in the way. So you have to remember, if you do ask for something, it might not happen in the way that you expect it to, because they're not going to mess about. They haven't got the patience for that. So it is something you have to learn to manage, to understand that they're just going to do it. You can't control a dragon as such. They aren't a pet. Mind you, I've got a dachshund that can't be controlled either, so that's a whole other story. It is powerful, and they will quite willing to help you if you, I want to say worship them, to honour them. They do like a little bit of, yes, sir. Because they're ancient creatures, and quite frankly, I think they deserve it, really. So you have to honour them, you have to respect them, as with deities, really. But you also have to expect that they're going to do it the way they want to do it. But they can boost all sorts of things. They can make things happen faster, they can give you confidence, courage, all of the power and energy stuff. But don't command them. That is my one thing. You cannot command a dragon. It will either ignore you completely, or it'll make you pay for it. Small disclaimer there. But it's amazing. It's amazing to work with them.
So would you say, one, beginning to attempt to work with a dragon, that a thick skin is potentially something that you would need?
Just be sensible, really, and approach with reverence and respect, and you'll be okay. Meditation, altars, offerings, all that all the usual stuff you would do with a deity, you do with dragons, really. But respect, I think, is utmost. But I think that goes for any otherworldly connection.
To me, that sounds similar to working with fair folk. There's an element of maintaining respect and trying your best to not overstep, and doing your research before you dive into that world. Yeah,
absolutely. There are some overlaps. Some people do consider dragon to be part of the fairy world as well. So yeah, absolutely.
In the working with dragon part in your book, there's a section that struck me. It was titled "How to Summon a Dragon," and the first two words were "do not." So I ask now, why shouldn't I attempt to summon a dragon?
It's funny. I was giving a talk earlier this year, and I said, just a question to the audience: how do you summon a dragon? And there were various answers. Very carefully is the general kind of answer that comes back.
Watch with the fire.
And some, but not all, breathe fire. I think that's one of the misunderstood myths, is that not all dragons breathe fire. Some of them breathe venomous spit, which is delightful, but some of them don't at all. So
that's very similar to Dungeons and Dragons. Within that game, there are loads of dragons, often segmented by color.
Right.
And each color breathe a different type of elemental weapon.
Okay.
So you have the black dragon that breathes acid, you have the red dragon that breathes fire, the white dragon that breathes frost, and it's just interesting that
that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Are they very elemental, the Dungeons and Dragons dragon?
Yes, I would say so. They're separated. I know a lot about this because my whole life is Dungeons and Dragons. They're separated by chromatic dragons and coloured dragons. So you have like the gold. Oh, sorry, chromatic and metallic. So you have gold, silver, bronze, and all of that. the metallic ones are seen as good dragons generally, and the chromatic ones are typically seen as the less nice, more typical greedy sort of dragon, and they tend to inhabit different environments as well. So you'd have the black dragon in the swamps breathing the acid, you'd have the red dragon in the fiery volcano breathing fire, and then you'd have the gold and the silver dragons sort of walking amongst humanity and trying to maintain balance as like ancient people and so on. And what's also interesting is that on the chromatic side, the god of all dragons is actually Tiamat, which is taken from Babylonian or Canaanite mythology, that sort of area. And anyway, we've diverted into Dungeons and Dragons now, which I can talk about for hours.
I think that's interesting because they've obviously, I don't know the origins of Dungeons and Dragons, but they've obviously taken from mythology and a lot of fact, for want of a better word, and brought that into it, which is fascinating. I think that's fabulous. Obviously I need to learn that.
Yeah, they also have the Feywild, which is very similar to the other world, where all of the fairies exist and all time is different and stuff. So
it does sound fascinating.
There's a lot of interesting lore and almost mythology, but story mythology that you can look at. But anyway, summoning dragons, why shouldn't I do it?
Okay, so either you'll get nothing and you will really offend them, and then they're not going to bother with you again because... You know, they're old. I'm not going to bother. They were rude. That's it. Ignore that person. It is disrespectful. It's very disrespectful. And you're going to upset them or just make them ignore you. So don't do it. Basically.
So with dragons, is there the potential that one could alienate themselves completely? Is there any way of groveling and trying to...
I've never
unoffend the offended.
I've never dared to upset one.
No.
I guess they do. They do like a bit of, bowing and scraping. So you could probably win them back round with a few offerings and lots of grovelling.
Yeah, speaking of offerings, do you have any advice for those who maybe haven't done an offering yet, as to what they could offer to? That's
interesting. A lot of the stories, because we don't have generally sheep or fair maidens to leave us off these days.
Here's my sister.
Take her.
Yeah.
A lot of the stories talk about milk, which I find quite bizarre for an enormous dragon. Quite a lot of the stories they'll start off appeasing the dragon by literally filling bathtubs or huge containers with milk and leaving that out for the dragon. I wonder if the connection, apparently snakes like milk, and I wonder whether there's a connection there with a lot of the dragons are in snake worm-like form. So I wonder whether there's someone's hooked onto the idea of that. Mine's not that happy with milk. He quite likes a whiskey or something a little bit more alcoholic than milk. It will depend on the dragon. It will depend on their culture, their element, the type of dragon that they are. But usually if you're unsure, ask and you'll get an idea of what to leave for them. They like sparkly things. I mean, hoards. They like coins. They like sparkly things. They like food. They like drink. So trust your intuition on it.
So you'd say that one connecting thing between fiction, mythology, and offerings is they do, in fact, actually quite like having sparkly things, a hoard, a sort of treasure, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, there's different types of dragons, but you'll find the ones, generally the long snake-type ones, wind themselves around mountains, and usually there's treasure in that mountain. That's why they wind themselves around it. And you'll find a lot of folklore. If you look in your local area, there are mountains that will have the name dragon, drake, drakon, some variation of the word. There'll be a myth there that there's treasure in the mountain, there's treasure in the hill, and a dragon guards it.
So another question, at risk of offending said dragons, in The Hobbit, it's typically because the dragon is greedy. Would you say in reality it's because a dragon is greedy that they like the shiny things, or is that just something we can't know? That's more of a unknown about them as to why they do enjoy treasure and gold.
I think it is a part of their personality that perhaps it's the protection that comes into it as well for some part of it.
I mean, money in a sense is protection in life against... You can eat if you have money, for example. If you don't have it, you struggle to eat.
Yeah, it's a necessity these days, isn't it? You have to have money. I think it is perhaps about protection. It is perhaps about wanting better things in life. I don't know. I think protection is the key for me, but I think it is also reflective of... There is greed there. They are ancient creatures, and do they like humans? Probably not very much, because we damaged the planet. We've wiped them out, basically. Most of the other world have all been sort of shoved out of the way. So I think there's probably a part of that as well, that I'm keeping this because I don't want you humans to have it, because you don't deserve it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I guess there's also an aspirational aspect as well to giving treasure as well, because treasure is also desired by people. So if dragons have a lot of treasure, they then become a symbol of aspiration.
Yeah.
Could I become the dragon in the mountain with the gold?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of psychology in it. I think there's a lot of looking at yourself, reflection of how the dragons act. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I guess that ties back into how they influence you and your personality as well.
Yeah. My dragon has no gold. Sadly.
Right, so moving on to rituals and working with dragons, obviously that's going to add a lot of power to the ritual. And I just wondered if you had any experiences or stories you'd like to share about maybe a ritual that involved dragon energy. And maybe that would help explain to others how they could work with dragons.
I'll have a tale of woe, if you like.
Go for it.
Most of the dragons can be slotted into one of the 4 elements, as air, fire, or water. Most, not all, but most. The way they live, their habitat, even their colourings, quite often tie in with one of the 4 elements. So they work really well when you're calling in the quarters of a ritual. So you can call in a fire dragon, a water dragon, air dragon, earth dragon, and they will bring their qualities to the ritual. I would say you need to have been working with dragons for a bit before you do that, because you are technically not summoning, but you are asking them to bring their energies. So you need to have a little bit of experience, just out of the respect of, you can't just, hey, come and join us right now.
You need a working relationship beforehand.
Yes. Yeah. So we had actually, like Coven, Kitterwich Coven, we'd written a dragon ritual, thought it'd be great fun. We used to hold open rituals at a local park. We threw in the Chaos Dragon. I have no idea why we decided to put the Chaos Dragon in, and it is a thing, a specific type of dragon. And we put that into the script. And we advertised the ritual and torrential rain. So we had to, for the first time ever, cancel the ritual because it was ridiculous weather. Rescheduled it for, a few weeks later. COVID hit. So the ritual was cancelled again. We decided to do it online recently, and we had so many technical problems, it was unreal. Basically, don't invite the Chaos Dragon to a ritual is a lesson that we learned from that. There is chaos in everything. There's chaos in the world, isn't it? Everything you do involves a little bit of chaos. And anything that involves changes, transformation, the Chaos Dragon or chaos of any sort works well. But just be mindful when you invite the Chaos Dragon in that he is going to cause quite a lot of mischief. But it does. Working a ritual is brilliant because they can bring all that power to the ritual, to the energy of it for your spell working, to bring in those elements. Just be mindful that you know a bit about them before you invite them in.
Yes, I have to say, I feel like the Chaos Dragon walks step in step with me sometimes.
if you like changes and transformation without knowing about it, then yeah, go for it. I like a little bit more organisation in my life, but we need that little bit of chaos every so often.
Yeah, I feel like I bring the chaos to a lot of situations that I find myself in as well.
He's obviously walking behind you. Yeah. Give him a bit of an offering. He'll be fine.
Say you're working a fire ritual that inviting in the dragon associated with fire is really going to make the fire strong, as it were.
Yeah, we work as witches and as pagans. We work with the elements a lot, and each of the 4 elements have their own characteristics. So if you want passion, energy, power, speed, drive, courage, self-confidence, they all come under the fire dragon. If you're dealing more with staying grounded or things to do with the home or money, material things, then an earth dragon would be a good one to bring in. So they all work quite well with the elements to bring those characteristics in.
Moving on maybe to some dragonology or types of dragons. Now, I must admit, I had an early version of the book, and my early version actually has a printing error in it where I can't actually read the types of dragons in it. So you're going to be informing me now, as I couldn't into it. Could you give us and me a quick overview of the different types of dragons that can be found?
There are all sorts, and it will depend on where you are in the world, even where you are in your area, because there are some dragons that are very specific to counties or even places. But there are generalizations. I would guess the one that most people think of is the heraldic or the drake. That's the one that you see on the Welsh flag or with George and the dragon. The 4 legs, the tail with the spike on the end, the wings, smell, really, that type of dragon. And most of the ones in the Harry Potter films, all that heraldic or drake. If you see the name Drake anywhere, that is an old way of saying dragon as well. There are worms, and that's worms with a Y, and they're generally the legless ones, snake-type ones, and they usually spit venom, which is lovely. The Hydra is quite an impressive one. That's a multi-headed dragon, sometimes 3, 4, sometimes 50. There's a Greek mythology Heracles story where he fights a hydra, and that one's got any number of heads that keep regrowing when you cut them off as well, which is a lot of fun. Yeah. Naga, if you like curry, you might be familiar with the Naga chili. There is actually a Naga dragon as well in India. That's another snake one. Naga actually means serpent. Sometimes the Naga dragon is actually half human, half cobra, which is quite a weird combination. The Eastern ones we're probably all familiar with. Those are the ones that you see at all the Chinese festivals, and they are beautiful, absolutely beautiful. The colours, and they normally have long beards as well. Yes, that's it. They are actually, they're often representative of the weather or water. They do have storm dragons and rain dragons connected with the weather. Basilisk, if you know Harry Potter, then you're familiar with the basilisk. Another snake-like one. Now, this has an interesting origin story. Apparently, the basilisk is created by a rooster laying an egg. I'll let you think about that one just for a minute. The rooster lays an egg, kind of a scientific miracle, but there you go. And then that egg is incubated by a toad or a snake. And that produces, apparently, a basilisk. So that's quite a lot of very unlikely scenarios put together. But that's what happens. Apparently that's how it's made. There's an amphitheater, 2 wings, no legs, and often feathers. And that's one thing I don't really think about when I think of dragons. I don't think of feathers. But there are quite a few of them that have colourful feathers on them. Long spiked tail and a beak as well, that one. And 2 tongues. One of the tongues is normal, the other one is venomous. Another Chinese one is the lung dragon. So that's a long, scaly, serpentine one. But that one has legs as well. So long serpentine body, but little tiny legs. Now, those, I think we're back to the clouds, the rain, the rivers, the weather type of dragon again. A lot of the Western dragons are the ones that actually breathe fire, that we are familiar with the wings, the claws, and they tend to be the ones that are associated with death, destruction, evil. I mean, there are so many different types, right down to one of my favourites, which is the Nucker dragon. That's with A. English dragon, only found in the county of Sussex. Yeah, it's very specific. It actually translates to mean water monster, and it literally lives at the bottom of a hole filled with water. Long serpent one, small wings, leathery skin, and enormous fangs, apparently. Particularly fond of shiny objects, specifically glass, like shiny glass, but it lives in a knucker hole, which is the deep pool of water. But very specific to Sussex. So if anybody's interested in the local area, do a bit of research, and it's so easy with Google. Not in my day when we had to go to the library. Google and you will find, I am sure, local myths and stories about specific dragons to your area.
That's so. I never knew there was a Sussex dragon. I'm going to have to go find out about him.
Yeah, definitely.
I wonder if there's a Surrey dragon.
Haven't found one yet, but but there are quite specific ones, and you will at least you will find a location, a mountain, or a place name that's linked to dragon, I'm sure.
Yeah, amazing. I never thought of the basilisk as a dragon, but that makes a lot of sense as well.
A lot of the serpent type creatures come under the dragon heading.
Yeah, that's interesting because in Harry Potter, they obviously have the dragons in the Triwizard Tournament, but they also do have the basilisk that's like in the dungeon, and that was very I found interesting about the second Harry Potter book. I'm just going to dive into some Harry Potter now.
Oh, I'm happy to go there. Yeah, love the books. Absolutely love the book.
Yeah. What's really interesting about that story is there's actually quite a strong mythological tale intertwined into the magic story there, where Harry has to literally go into the dungeon, into the deepest depths, to fight the basilisk, which we now think of as the dragon. And the phoenix emerges, takes the sword, Phoenix dies, he slays the dragon, Phoenix is reborn, and he emerges from the deepest pit as the hero, which is a very...
Ooh, I've heard that story somewhere before. But she was right with the basilisk, though, because the legend of the basilisk is that it can kill you by staring at you.
Yeah, and throughout that film and book, everyone catches a glimpse of it and they're petrified because they don't quite look it directly in the eye.
That's from legend, totally from legend.
So that's really interesting then. That's an incredibly popular book as, well, she's like the richest person in England, superseding the monarchy. And but everyone there has actually read a very traditional mythological tale about dragons, essentially, which is just really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, moving on to, we touched on it a little bit, elemental dragons. You've already touched on the earth and the fire dragon, the sort of things they represent. I just wondered if you could inform us what I'm assuming it's air and water.
Yes.
What sort of things those represent for those, just to fill in the gaps.
My own is a fire dragon, which is why there's the power and the energy and the movement forward, and the total control freak. But that's... I think you will find... I've found that a lot of dragons will take on the characteristics of where they live. And that's another question as well. Where do they live? Most people will say caves, but they live all over the place. It might be caves, it might be forests, it might be deserts, it might be the ocean. You'll find them all over the place. They will take on the characteristics of their habitat, but that then puts them into the 4 element categories. So all of the sea monsters, all of the water dragons will be water element dragons. And generally, I say generally, not always, the colours will represent it too. So the sea monster ones, the water dragons might be whites, blues, greens. My fire dragon is flaming red, obviously. Earth dragons, forests, fields, caves. They'll be grey, green, blue, brown, but they will bring all those elements with them. Air dragons kind of covers a lot of them because a lot of them do fly. Not all of them, but a lot of them do fly. But the air dragons you'll usually find mountaintops, those kind of airy spaces, and they will be the more intellect, intuition type of dragons, and they'll bring that to them. Water is usually emotions. But then I think you've got to think about, we always think about the four elements, and we think about all the positives. There's negatives to these elements as well.
So vary of the other side as well.
Yeah, you think about the water and the ocean, how powerful and deep it is as well. So you have to think about the flip sides of these as well, because they don't just bring the good energies. They'll bring the bad characteristics as well. So it's about finding that balance. But you can usually slot them into one of the elements.
Yeah. I guess the Chaos Dragon is the one that sort of maybe dabbles in a lot of them and not in necessarily the best way.
I generally, when I've seen, felt, imagined him, he's been of a purpley, dark kind of colour. But again, it's. I think, like deity, they will appear to you in a way that you will recognise them. So I might not necessarily see them the same as the next person. It'll be how you recognise them.
Yes, you've just got to trust your gut, your intuition.
Yeah, absolutely. Always, in all things.
And you also mentioned about how you could work with them throughout the seasons as well. And we're coming into winter now, so maybe are there different types of dragons we can focus on a little bit more as we come into the colder, wetter sort of months versus obviously summer, the hot months?
I think as pagans, we tend to work with the wheel of the year anyway, in whatever format. We work with the seasons. So you'll feel different energies. I tend to generally work with the fire dragon because he's always with me and always has been. But there are other ones that will come in and go with the seasons. So you will find, like the deities, there are dragons that are associated with different seasons as well. And they're, as long as you're respectful and you're nice, polite, still strong though. Don't let them push you out. You can call in ones to work in the different seasons with you, because again, you're talking about working with energy. It's all energy in different formats. So the different seasons have different energies. So you can call on different dragons that will be associated with those seasons. Yeah.
Would you say there's a risk of if you're a little bit too I don't want to say weak, but a little bit too what's the word? If you let them get away with a little bit too, if you don't stand your ground a little bit, is there a risk that they could take advantage potentially?
Yeah. But I guess that's the same as well with like working with the world of fairy. It's the same thing. You learn a lot. I think you learn how to work with them, and you learn that. I was going to say you can say no, but if you say no, they will just keep going. You need to learn a lesson from this. Whenever I feel my fire dragon most, he'll start looming behind me, and this energy will go.
Shadow of the wings approaching.
Yes, and it's usually because I've done something really stupid, and I'm not listening.
Yeah,
which happens probably more than it should.
I guess that plays into their protective nature, but it's not necessarily protective in the way one might think. They are protective via tough love, maybe.
Oh yes, for your own good.
Yeah,
for your own good. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, amazing. So we are swiftly running out of time, and I've got a couple more questions that I wanted to ask. And the next one is a phrase in the book I've never heard before that I would like you to explain for me and everyone, and that is musical dragons. I need to know more as a musical lover and a heavy metal lover and a musician. I need to know more about musical dragons.
It's not really a thrash metal band name, is it? Really, no. Musical dragons. We're back to energy here, because it is all energy that you're working with. Energy works with vibrations, so dragons love vibrations. So whatever music you like to play, you'll probably find that there's a dragon that will resonate with that vibration. I mean, my dragon has to love 80s pop, otherwise, But I like AC/DC, Metallica. I'm very happy with that. He likes that too. So it's vibrations. And that's what you're working on with music. So if you are in ritual, or if you are meditating, or if you are trying to drum up the energy of dragon, then music can be really, really useful. I don't meditate to plinky plonky lift music. That doesn't work for me. I tend to listen more to Journey or something like that. But I've had Metallica tunes playing in ritual or AC/DC because it raises the energy level. It raises the vibrations, and the dragons will pick up on that because they pick up on that vibrational energy.
That's one thing I've always thought was really interesting about music is, like you say, with the vibrations. A lot of the music I like, the vibrations are almost dissonant, and for a lot of people, they create a feeling of unease, but for me, they actually create a feeling of calm, whereas the ones that would create a feeling of ease in the more sort of standard, let's say, pop music, I actually struggle to listen to. So what's interesting to think about there is how I have that enjoyment of dissonant vibrations, and maybe there's a dragon out there that is like also vibes with that in a sense,
there's a thrash metal dragon. But we're all different, aren't we? And music particularly, I think, evokes emotions.
Yes.
And it has to resonate with your vibrations to work for you. I very rarely listen to modern pop music. It's just not my thing. I am really stuck in 1984, let's be honest. But yeah, I do like the heavier rock stuff because it's the beat, I think, and because I love drums and I love the sound and feel of drums, it's that heavy beat, I think, that I like. But that's not going to work for the next person. So it has to resonate with you.
So do you think music's potentially a useful pathway into working with dragons, maybe? Because music is much more... Everyone listens to music.
Yeah.
So is there potentially a pathway there to discover something within dragon magic itself?
I think within magic as a whole, I think it's a very underrated, underused way of raising energy and making connections. Quite often when I connect with Sulis, I play ancient Roman music. It's about picking what works and what you think will make that connection. And it works for ritual, spell working, all sorts.
Well, I've always thought the music as well, one thing a lot of people don't appreciate is that when you go to, say, a concert, if you strip out the music and you just look at it, that's 100,000 people having a combined religious experience, in a sense.
Yeah.
I
wonder how many people experience that now, though, because there's so much online, and the amount of gigs I've been to where people are just watching it through their phone, and you think, no, experience it. You've got to be there. That whole collective energy is something completely different.
Yeah, there was a story I heard about, I can't remember who said it, but you take like the culture of punk. They go to a gig and they let out all this energy at a punk concert. They're thrashing around, they're going crazy. And you look at them and you'd say, you're having a religious experience, and they tell you to F off because that's part of their religious experience.
Yes.
And there was
I just imagine John Lydon doing that. Yeah, you've had a religious experience, don't worry about it. Yeah. Or the Clash or something. Yeah.
There was also a recent thing I saw. You probably may not have heard of them. It's a band called Parkway Drive, and they're really theatrical. I saw a clip recently where the lead singer is literally on a platform raising up, almost like the visage of some sort of deity, and he delivers this like massive line, and everyone's all involved in everything, and it's just the striking similarities of that to say a priest giving communion is just
Oh, yeah.
Something no one ever thinks about.
No, I'd never thought about that before, but you do. You think about, from my generation, Prince standing there in his purple velvet.
Or Michael Jackson.
Any of the legends, commanding their audience. Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing. Anyway, we are very swiftly running out of time now. I'm going to quickly ask, do you have any words of advice for those seeking connection with dragons? Some final closing advice, as it were.
Do it. But don't expect it to be light and fluffy. There are different energies out there. There's different ways of working with them, but they aren't linear. They just do whatever they think. Whatever they think is best for you. That's the right way of saying it. Whatever they think is best for you. It is powerful. Be respectful. And be mindful that they will do whatever they think is best, but definitely look into it because it is such an amazing experience. Don't expect to see the little dragon walking across your front lawn. You're working with the energy, so be mindful that it is energy. And for anyone, I do have to add this, the book cover was designed by Matty, and I have to thank that because you absolutely nailed it. Even if everyone decided that the name should be Keith. It's not a very fire dragon name, but he's Keith and he loves it.
Yeah. Well, I always think that the dragon makes the name, not the name makes the dragon.
But you did. I mean, in all fairness, I just said to you a fire dragon and that's what you came up with it. And you've absolutely nailed it.
Well, you're very welcome. And thank you very much for the kind words. Do you have any final thoughts you would like to share at all? Or do you think we've covered everything?
I think trust your intuition. It will never let you down. And know that the pathway is yours to make and make it your own. There are no rights or wrongs. There's mindful guidelines, but make it your own.
Yeah. I think that's a good note to end on for most things. Trust yourself and trust your intuition.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for this, Rachel. It's been absolutely enlightening and absolutely fascinating. How's it felt being on the other side for once?
Well, with you at the helm, Matty, it was absolutely fine. Although I am going to now have to go and learn how to do Dungeons and Dragons because that sounds fascinating.
Guess I should wrap up with the classic final words of thank you, everybody, for listening or watching to this. We'll see you next time on the Pagan Portal Podcast.
You have been listening to the Pagan Portal Podcast, a Moonbooks Publishing production. For more information, please visit our website.